Okay, let's try this again. I'm having some trouble with my mic today. Um, Again, like I usually mention, follow me on Twitter if you haven't yet. I do a lot more content there. I do one video a week. Sometimes I'll do two if I have time, but this is where you're going to get all the content from. And you can make some money on these charts. And I'll also teach you how to do the charts like I do. And that's kind of what I'm going to go over today. But we're also going to talk about some alts, and we'll just look from the top down. We'll start it daily. I'll show you where they're at and how long they have to go. If you have a comment, if you have a question, anything like that, post it below, hit the like button. If you like what you hear, and just let me know if there's something that isn't quite clear, or if you want me to chart a certain coin. I'm always happy to do that. So, we're going to talk about Doge. We're going to talk about TVK. You can see it on the feed here that I've got. So we'll go over these. The reason I follow these coins specifically is they're the ones that I'm playing. And that's why if you really want different coins, you're going to have to let me know which ones you want to see. All right, so let's start with, let me get this stuff out of the way. Is this the one I want to show you? Okay, so this specifically, I wanted to show, let me just get this other stuff off the screen first, because I want to make this real simple from a top-down view. Okay, so here we are on the daily chart. This is for INJ. I think it's Engine, maybe. It was one of the first ones to move off the bottom. And the reason why I highlighted these areas with a rectangle is this is kind of like the most important move for this particular coin. All the coins follow a similar pattern. There's going to be times when Bitcoin just, completely wrecks this idea where it's not going to look the same as this. It might look somewhat similar, but Bitcoin could all of a sudden just, fall through the floor and cause it to change the pattern. So your patterns are not always going to work. You can't really, you might be able to follow it on a longer time frame, but when you get down to lower time frames, you can get faked out. So be careful trying to follow these patterns exactly. But a lot of coins are doing this right now. Some of them are still a little bit behind. You got a couple of coins that are over here, like TRB. What else? I forget what else is over there. But there's even some coins in here. And I think Render is somewhere in here, and I'm not real sure exactly where. Maybe it's still down here. And I'm going to get into Render. But what you're trying to do, of course, is you want to rotate your coins to where, say, you make this push right here, and you try to get out as near the top as possible. You take that profit. And maybe you don't play this one. Maybe you wait for the bigger one and then you get back in, or you can short this. Just kind of keep an eye on it and try to see if you can figure out what the top is. And then you want to make that play. And then you probably want to be out of this one and then, get back in this one. You could range play this, but the amount of days between here and here, I mean, that's really what you're trying to avoid. So here's on Engine specifically, it's 164 days. But on this move here, it only took it, for this first move, it took 20 days. So that's the difference. You're trying to maximize your capital gain or your profit gain in the shortest amount of time possible. And even that short's a really good short. So, I think these two boxes are two of the most important. And this is probably, number 2 and number 3 as well, or this one. But, it takes a while for this coin to work through all of this to get to this one. So that's why it's important to try to grab this one first. And we'll look at this. I'll show you where some of these coins are. In fact, I was just thinking, let's do it this way, just to make it easier for everybody to understand where these coins are roughly. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put the coins I'm going to talk about over here on the right side, and then put Engine here on the left, and then you'll kind of be able to see it better. All right, let's see. And I'm going to talk about BTC in a second as well. I usually don't talk about it, but I do want to kind of go over where I think it could be. So let's talk about Zilliqa just real quick, just where it's at, basically, nothing else. First, I have to make sure this is an old coin, and I think yeah, ZIL's an old one. Okay, because if if you're trying to look at a coin that doesn't have much history versus Engine, which does, then your coin location, where it might be in its progression, might be different. This one seems to be kind of down here. I mean, this pattern looks very similar. Which, by the way, in the future, if you ever see this pattern where it's just like a real steady line going up and it has a real tight range, usually that's going to roll over at some point, and maybe I think it does this little thing and then it comes up and rolls over once more or something. I'd have to look at it again, but you'll get used to seeing those patterns after a while. So if I had to guess where this one was on this chart, I would say it's probably kind of right in here at the beginning of it. So this is a good one to get into. Let's look at the next one. I think render is on the higher end of things here. This one's going to be a little bit more difficult to determine because the patterns start to deviate from, you can't always use coins to try to determine where things are at. But if I had to guess, I think when I was looking at it yesterday for somebody, because this was a requested coin on Twitter, I think I had determined that it was probably right here. And it took me a while to figure that out, but I'm still second guessing myself on it. I'm actually not real sure that's where it's at. But this is the reason why you have to be careful. So this broke down. I mean, the reason why I thought that is because it's getting back up here into resistance, where the most recent resistance is. And usually you don't break it right away. Usually there's a third test. So it needs to come down one more time and then test it again. And that's exactly what happened here. Here's 1, 2, and then 3. It finally made it out. So, it could be here. I'm pretty sure it is. But see, the thing is that makes me a little bit hesitant is it did extend above this previous high, but that doesn't really matter to me. It can still be roughly a double top with just a slightly higher high. This one made a perfect double top, of course, on Engine. So this is render. I think, if I was in this one, I'd be taking profits around this area. I mean, here's the, yeah, I mean, where it's at currently, if it was to come up here and then fall back below this line, maybe I don't have that drawn exactly where I want it. It's pretty close. So anyway, if it was to break back below this line, I would say it's probably coming down and it's doing this. That would be my guess. All right, let's look at Astra, and I will get into more detail on these. I mean, this could end up being a long video, but I'll set it up to where there's those little, what do you call it, timestamps, where you can jump around to whatever coin you want to look at. So it'll make it easier for you. But you may want to stay with me on this one before you jump to your coin, because first we're going to talk about where the coins are, and I'm not going to timestamp that. This is just going to be talking about a bunch of coins all at once, and then we'll get into detail on the rest of it. And I promise I'll be as quick as I can, but this stuff does take a while to talk about. I like to keep these videos less than 45 minutes, but I doubt on this one that I can do that because it's going to take a while. Let me see. This one's a little bit more difficult just because Astra is further behind the other coins, and I think it's probably right in here somewhere versus INJ. The reason why this one's difficult is it's a new coin, as far as I know. Let me double check that. I like to check on coin market cap just to see what well, it must be real new. Well, wait, am I looking at the right one? Astra coin. Oh, it's Astra protocol. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, so this is a brand new coin. So a little bit more difficult, actually a lot more difficult to figure out where it's at. There's a chance, that this could just be this top. I mean, there's a chance that that's the case, and that this one could be in here somewhere. I mean, I gotta say on this one, it's actually kind of difficult to know exactly where it's at, but you could say something like this, which you can't really use that one. It's more like this. I mean, it is a higher low, so unless this is just some kind of fake out, I think it's going to go back up, because this could be your automatic rally, and then this made a double. Yeah, I mean, I feel pretty good about it, just because here's your first two tests, 1 2, here's 1 2, and then here's the third, and it got above it on the third. I've felt pretty good about this coin from the beginning, but it was pretty weak here for a while. So, there's a chance it gets back up here and then rejects one more time, but I doubt it. I would imagine it breaks through, and I'll get into that. I actually have a chart on that one. So I would just say not real sure on this one, but maybe 60% confident on it anyway. All right, let's look at SXP. First, always make sure that your coin is an old one. Yep. And then you can say, okay, here's that right here that happened. And so if you want to draw your trend line, you just say probably right here. And see, there's that same pattern. So if you see this pattern, know that this is bullish, but eventually it turns into a bearish pattern. It's pushing up, pushing up, pushing up. Here's a little bit of weakness. It gets above it and then rolls over. And it might roll over to this wick right here, or could roll over to this one of the two. And I can dial down and probably tell better, but it takes me a while to investigate that. All right, so that's SXP. It's near the bottom as well, just like I think ZIL was. What else? Okay, MINA. And I'll bring up one here in a second that I haven't been following, and I'll look at it for you real quick. I think MINA is a little bit higher on things. Let's see. Sorry, I had to do something there. Okay. One thing I like about these coins that seem more aggressive to the downside, look how, let's see if I can explain this. Okay, so look how this created like I mean, in this case, if you had momentum coming up, like this probably did, if I looked at market cipher, you would have a bullish div. I don't know if it created, yeah, it was creating momentum coming up there while the price was coming down. And then that's what kind of indicated the pump was coming. But the point I was going to make is, notice how this one created a higher low, but at the same time, this one was creating a lower low. So for some reason, these ones that go down real aggressively like this, they can really pump. And you can see that right there. MINA had a massive, let me see what that was from the bottom. It was like 155% gain on, well, not one candle, but maybe 2 or 3 days. Well, no, it's probably 15 days. So just know that if you have a lot of consolidation, if it takes a long time, like XRP or Dogecoin's that way, SHIB is that way. There's multiple ones that I'm sure you're aware of that if they go sideways for a long time in consolidation, they're usually going to pump really hard. But the problem is you got to be patient, right? I mean, you're just, it's going to be hard to wait for that moment, and you're going to see everybody else's coins blasting off, and but this one will make a much bigger push if you can time it right or get close to it. So here's your let's see, well, roughly this, that's your breakout, and that would put it probably maybe in here somewhere, I would imagine. These are a little bit more difficult to figure out. I mean, it is doing, when did this one start? 21, okay. It is doing kind of like a cut pattern, and eventually it'll get real parabolic. But this one's already made its cup over here, kind of like that. So it's a little bit more difficult for ones like this to figure out where it's at. It is making a pattern exactly like this, though. Just like that. But this is on a higher time. Well, it's on the same time frame. It's just at a higher point. I would suspect this didn't do. Yeah. So this one did probably like 50% more than this candle did for Mina. And that would tell me that this one probably has to get above here before it gets a much bigger correction like this one did. See how this peak right here, this one got above it. So at some point, once this gets done consolidating, you're going to get another pump and it's going to do something like that. So I would suspect it's somewhere in the middle of this move, probably right in here, because it ended up just under that. But this is it's just a general guideline. I mean, I wouldn't take this for 100% certainty that Mina looks like the INJ chart, because it doesn't. There's other charts that you could compare this to that it would look more similar to, probably like Doge and stuff. But Doge is behind Mina, so I can't really compare it in this case. Let's see, SUI, that's a good one. A lot of people like that one. Kind of like Astra. A lot of people like Astra, it seems like. Yeah, same thing. See that bullish pattern that's eventually going to roll over? There's your breakout. Something like that. See how it always comes back and retests that breakout? And I'll show you one here. And actually, I'm going to show you SUI on a lower time frame and show you how to try to catch something like that. What was I going to say now? Okay, so it's kind of in here somewhere. I know that probably looks too low, but that's about where it's at. Because see, here's that retest, and it's just kind of slowly working up through here, and eventually it gets parabolic. But just understand, this is if we take it from here, this still took about 18 days. And so far on SUI, you've got from this bottom 13. Yeah, it kind of surprises me because I don't think in whatever how many days, 5 days, it's going to push up that much. But see the pattern of this one, it's a lot more difficult. Oh, this is a new coin too. That's why. Yeah. So let me see if I can figure this out. Maybe that's that top, just like we were talking about the other one. And, these new coins are just harder to figure out because you don't have enough history to go back and draw lines and really get a feel for it. I don't have any of this history back here to go by. So all we can assume is, it had a breakout, it retested the breakout, and at best, all we can assume is it's somewhere in here probably. So it's got plenty of room. And that's one of the reasons why people like it. People just seem to like new coins in general. Okay, here's TVK. I think this is an older one, maybe. Yeah. This one's still, it's one of those aggressive ones where it went down real aggressively, so it goes back up aggressively. And I did buy this spot. There's nowhere to leverage trade it that I can use anyway. But I imagine they are going to have leverage trading options probably by next year. Let's see, breakout something like that. Or is it up here more? Yeah, it's something like that. You got your retest there. I mean, there's another, you could pull it down here somewhere, but whatever. Retest. You're getting close to, anytime you get close to these previous swing failure patterns where you have these wicks at the very peak, you have to be suspicious and think, well, maybe this is a place to take profit, because that's what we call an order block, where there's a big, there's a, like if you looked at is this daily? Let me see if I looked at weekly. Yeah, I mean, it's hard to, this is probably better here. So notice how there's a big imbalance here. Like if you were looking at this before, you would say, wow, this is a massive move. The market makers really want this to go down. They're letting people short it. But you have to remember that these moves, no matter how big they are, usually get retraced 50% minimum. So like if you get a single candle, here, notice how this one, let's see, what did it do? It pushed way down and then it came back up and retested it. Of course, I don't know what the price action looked like exactly on this candle, but you're always going to get a 50% retracement at some point. Sometimes it goes to golden pocket. Sometimes it just gets close to the 50% retracement and doesn't do it. So eventually this has to get filled. It's what they call a gap fill. So we call it an imbalance as well. And what you look for is the order block here at the top of that imbalance. And when your price action is coming back up, usually it's going to reject again from that area. Of course, this has been retested twice, but this is a massive move here. I mean, it has to be retraced, I would suspect, before you got a higher move out of it. And then that next higher move would take you to this order block. So the current order block is somewhere in there. It's kind of getting into it now, but think more along the lines of ranging. If you were to play a range, like how nice would it be if you had the patience to do this, without even looking at what happened there. And so you wouldn't have known here, you wouldn't have known here, but once you saw these two, you could start developing your range. And so you would have, you probably would have longed here, shorted here. And then once this broke down with an engulfing candle, you said, well, the range just changed, so I got to change my range. But anyway, you might get a lower low here, or you might get a triple top, but either way, it's going to, I think, retrace. We'll have to see. It's an older coin, so, oh, you know what? There are patterns like this where the automatic rally happened higher and just made a double top like this with the ST, on Wyckoff. Here, I'll show you that real quick. I don't want you to be confused about what I'm talking about. Of course, this doesn't, it's not foolproof. But here it is right here. So automatic rally, ST and phase B, pushes it up again, double top, and then you get your spring. And that's what happened on this one. I didn't notice it till just now. So we've got a spring on this one, and that was a perfect buying opportunity once you saw that lower low, because you actually had, if you drew your trend line here, yeah, something like that. So you had your reversal, which you wouldn't have known exactly until, so you had a double bottom. Yeah, you would have felt more confident on this weekly engulfing candle there, because now you're above and you closed above this. You're making a higher high at that point. But then it just made a double top, made a lower low down here. And I suspect it's going to break back through that the next time. But again, it might roll over temporarily. Okay. Let's see, we talked about TVK. Oh, Doge. And then I'll do one more, and then we'll get into the specific coins, and I'll timestamp all this so that you can jump around. Let's see, Dogecoin. Yeah, these are a little bit more difficult just because they're different looking charts than most charts. But all you have to do really is just do your breakout line there, see if it's broken out yet. If you're not seeing that yet, you wait for the candle to get above it. And of course, as a weekly, you don't need to be playing weekly unless you're never checking charts. And you're just a position trader and you're waiting till you bought a bunch of your altcoins, you're just waiting until the bull run ends and then you take your profit. Nothing wrong with that. It's pretty good strategy, actually. Okay. This isn't actually accurate. You shouldn't be just running a line through here like that. You could either go from the wicks or you can go from, it's probably more like that. can go through the wicks or you can go candle bodies, either way. Okay, so you got your retest, and here's the next little pattern. And Doge looks like it's just working through some stuff, and it's going to push through it pretty quick. And then, so that means we're probably, let's see. I mean, one thing to notice is, Doge obviously hits the gas. It really goes after a long consolidation, just like MINA, just like SHIB. That's why people like it, but they don't like waiting. Yeah, if I had to guess, I'd say somewhere in here, maybe. Yeah, that's about right. Somewhere in here. So long term, I mean, it's of course going way up, but it just depends on if you can suffer through those ups and downs. Good one to hold, though, for sure. And like I promised, I'll just look at a random one here, and then we'll go into that other. Hopefully I'm not missing any bullishness. Okay, I'm going to show this SUI thing here in a second. Let me just find one here in the middle of everything that I haven't covered. APT. I'm trying to find one that's pretty popular. Theta, OXT, Clay. Algo. Here we go. All right, this is a pretty popular play. More of a high cap coin. Okay, so it's an older coin. That's good. We have a lot of history. Now we're going to draw our trend line. There's approximately the breakout. I'm not going to try to get it exactly. There's a retest here somewhere. That's probably more accurate there where this wick happened. Same thing on this one. It's doing this move where it, it's a bullish move, eventually turns into a bearish one once it gets to its top. But after that, once it does its little retracement at this top, it usually blasts off, I believe. Let's just dial down here a little bit on this chart and just see what happens. So retest roughly this area. And I think that's this move, maybe. Or maybe it's got to be this move. So it's somewhere in here, and then it does that retest, takes off again, retest, takes off again, and then big retest. You want to avoid that big retest. Usually what you find is you get 4 peaks. That's what I've called it before, 4 peaks. So you get one. Wow, get that thing out of my way. You get one right there. You get one there. You get one there, and then a bigger one there. And you could tell where these peaks are on a higher time frame, or at least a 4-hour or higher, by seeing this big wick here at the very top of them. And I don't think, let's see what the 4-hour shows. I don't even think we've got our first one here. So have we? Maybe it's just working on this first one. Let's see, that's the top of that. Top of this. This isn't the best chart to be comparing to Algo, actually. It's not the same type of chart. Now let's just assume it's probably working on this first one, just to be safe. So lots of room to go. Okay, so let's move away from this. And I'm just going to talk about Bitcoin briefly, just about what my idea is here. Let me start daily. I don't know that this is going to happen exactly. It just, this is what I see so far based on what the wicks are giving us. It's kind of expanding channel here. And usually this is a bearish pattern, of course. Not saying it can't go higher, but if this does play out, it'll just, touch each side a couple of times and come down back to 31 or so. But what you can do, you don't have to just say, okay, it's definitely going to do that. What you can do is this instead, is create you a range, and you can use that rectangle if you want. But you really want to probably go to a weekly, well, maybe like a 2-day or something. you want to find some confluence over here. I mean, I've already got my line, so this works, but you need some kind of confluence. This was kind of the retest here. It rolled over, retested this line. Same thing here, rolled over, retested that. So, you could use like something like that as your range. Something like that's your range. And then, of course, that's your midline. But what you want to look for, and a person I really like that covers this is XO Trader on Twitter. He's really good at explaining how to trade safely. And so what he likes to show when he's doing his videos is if you come up here out of the range, it's going to make a real squirrely line. Hang on. Okay, so if you come, if for some reason it did this and came up here and then it bounced, if you got a strong bounce off of this, then obviously we're going up. But if you were to do something like this, and especially if you got a lot of wicks to the top like that, and then it comes back down, and it doesn't really have to retest. It could just, go down for a while and then come back and retest later. But if you get something like that, obviously there's a lot of weakness here, or a lot of people shorting up here. And so although there is some liquidity that the market makers can grab up here, they don't have to. They could leave it for later, and they could liquidate all of these people that are trying to long at the top here, which just understand that's what the markets are all about. Dumb money, longing, thinking that things are going to break out. And, I've been guilty of it in the past too. You can try to do a breakout play with volume, but you have to have the volume. But if you want to do a safe trade and preserve your capital, then this is how you play it. You wait for the breakout to happen and retest, and it could come up a ways and then come retests, and you can just be patient. Or you can keep trying to long resistance, and your capital gets drained eventually. Anyway, somewhere in there, that's your range play. It's bouncing off the midline currently. Maybe it comes here, it goes back up. Maybe it comes back down and then, retests this and then comes back down to here. The point is you should be buying here or shorting here or shorting here. Or if it comes up here, you should be buying there. So hopefully that makes sense. Go watch XO. Just search XO Trader on YouTube. He does a really good job of explaining that, much better than I can. Okay, so let's get into specific coins, and I'm going to cover SUI first because I really like the pattern that it's making here. Let's go to higher, well, not real high. Let's go to 4 hour first. Okay, so currently we have money flow coming down on the 4 hour. I am seeing VWAP here. That's what these little yellow areas are. I am seeing VWAP maybe starting to curl. And so I can start looking at my lower time frames. I mean, the thing is, if you're going to long, you want to see money flow coming down. And I'll show you here. Let me just give you an example here. See this pattern right here? I mean, this is much closer. You're looking here. Let me make it easier. Remember how we looked at a pattern that was very similar to, well, anyway, it was real tight, but remember it's very similar to that. It was just like up in an angle and real tight range like this. And I talked about eventually it gets to the top and rolls over. Well, that's exactly what's happening here with SUI. I mean, this is a really good situation if you're wanting to long this coin, because you want these impulse waves to eventually coincide with a drawdown that is going to allow you to buy back. And so I don't remember, this one could even come, well, no. I think it probably stops here. I think it stops above here. I'm not real positive on this pattern. I don't think it comes down to here. Anyway, I'll try to post on that later on Twitter. I'll do some study on it and try to figure out where it's going to bounce at. But anyway, the point I wanted to make real quick using Market Cipher, because it really shows the money flow well. Here's what I want to show. On lower time frames, here's what happens. As price goes up, you get these curving patterns where it's like a, let me draw it, kind of like a hill, and then another hill, and then it might come down just a little bit, you get another hill, and see how they're losing momentum as it goes up. Here's a really small one. Well, I drew that too big. It's a small one, more like that. But that's, so on a 4-hour chart, you're going to see money flow continue to rise. You're not going to see these little bumps like this. And this is kind of a warning sign right here when you get this first bigger red one. So now the red ones are probably going to start making bigger red ones, just like these green ones did on a lower time frame. Like if I step down here to maybe 30-minute, see how these red ones are starting to build up more and more. They're starting to get a little bit thicker. But I think we're getting closer to a bottom on this. I just wanted you to understand how different time frames work. Notice how, you know, you did get a big hill here and then another big hill. So really on a higher time frame, you're going to see these green ones get bigger and bigger, and it's going to have 4 impulses. And I think that's what you'll see on a daily, maybe. I'm trying to remember how it goes exactly. Oh, I know what to do. Let's look at, what was I looking at? Oh, here it is. Oh, no, it was the 4-hour. Okay. So notice on this big push by INJ, you got those same, you know, here's hill, 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 and that was the top of the move. What you'd really like to find is, you know, find you a time frame, maybe a 1-hour. Find you a time frame with something like Market Cipher or, you know, like a money flow index type thing. And if you can, so here's the first small one. Here's the second one. And notice how they coincided exactly with these peaks. Well, I mean, not exactly, but you know, you would have to get out about 3/4 of the peak here to retain your funds and buy back cheaper. But first hill was small, second one's real big, next one was smaller, next one was smaller. And what you could have done was just drawn a line if you wanted to on something like this, you know. Momentum coming down while price goes up. But just understand that this happens on every time frame. The ups and downs happen. There are patterns you can find. I'm not saying it's easy to trade. I struggle with it sometimes too, trying to find where the bottoms are on these retraces, but hopefully that makes sense to you. All right. What was I on? Oh, SUI. Okay, so SUI on lower time frames. Let me see what's going on here. That's an 8-hour. Okay. So 4-hour is curling down. It's probably not going to reach the base here. It's probably going to curl back up because I'm noticing VWAP is starting to curl. See how right here? And this, I didn't really intend for this to be a Market Cipher tutorial, but see how this curls up, and then eventually when it crosses right here, it creates a big move up. So what you can do is you set up your ranges ahead of time. And so there's been a lot of price action right here. There's been a lot of price action, and I'm just talking about short term. Been a lot of price action right there. So if you just wanted to play the range, then you could do that. And you could look at something like your money flow. And if you see this curvature and it's starting to curl back up, try to catch it about 3/4 into the move if you can. But I prefer to use trend lines to make sure, because I'd rather have like 2 or 3 confirmations. I don't want to get caught in a bad trade if I can keep from it. And so that's what you'd use right there. But just understand, it's hard to catch these moves without going to a lower time frame. So try to figure out what might happen in the future. So I'll draw this out just so you can see it. So I'm thinking, okay, the way that this one is angled, it might do something like that. And about right here, I can even put myself a line. About right here, I might want to take a long. And so I could even put an alert here, say, check to buy SUI or something like that, and hit save. And then at that moment in time, you check. But just understand, you may not catch the bottom. Let's look and see what it's doing on low time frames. So here's my trend line. I just connected all the tops of the the wick and the body right here, and I'm just waiting for it to get above the line. That's all I care about. I don't want to be trying to catch a falling knife. It could keep going down, and that's how you save money, is by waiting on these moves. And what I really want to see, by the way, is if it did come down here and then break out, it's probably going to retest or something. Usually it does and creates a higher low. You want to see an engulfing candle breaking out of this. You don't want to see a bunch of consolidation candles because, it could come down. And sometimes you might even see something like this where it does like a bear flag, which would kind of look like this. Actually, it looks bullish, but eventually it rolls back over. So just be careful because, if you see that pattern where it's just kind of going straight up in a line, I mean, not straight up, but it's just kind of going like that, sometimes that can roll over. So just, be careful with that. Okay, so ZIL, I'm not going to use market cipher on every one of these. We don't have to. Daily, we talked about, it's kind of right here near the bottom of its breakout. So a real good coin to be in. Yeah, it's kind of done its breakout and retest already. There will be some ups and downs on the way up. So, be aware that if you use leverage, be careful that your stop isn't so tight or your liquidation level isn't so tight that you'll miss out on the pump because, it just did a little retest and took off. Because on the daily, it's not going to look like much of a retest, but on the lower time frames, it is for sure. I mean, it's probably like a 12%, 14% drawdown, something like that. But, this could just be a higher low and it takes off. I think I had actually drawn that on Twitter that it may do something like this. I mean, as far as being sure what this one's going to do, you can't be completely sure until it really works all this out and breaks above that. And then, of course, it has to get above this previous high that it's working on. If it works it out a lot down here and, tries to consolidate and kind of slowly move up, then it'll probably break it. And I think that's normally how they react. Okay, render we talked about, I think it is nearing a top, so just be aware of that. If I'm looking at, what is this, daily? Yeah, I'm looking at a very high time frame where money flow is coming down, but just understand that on higher time frames, the money flow moves very slowly. So you really have to go down at least to a 4 hour and see what's going on. And you can see it's tapering down. If you go to a 1 hour, it's coming back up. But I'm looking at this. Oh, I need to have my VWAP on here. See how the VWAP's coming down, and it looks like this momentum right here is going to shift back down. Maybe. I think there's a lot of resistance right there. So just be aware of that. And one way you can know for sure, again, always draw your trend lines, because that's the best way to get a good entry that you can feel fairly confident about. Don't really like, I'd rather do it at a low time frame, draw this. I mean, you could draw it here just to be safe. So extend it out. I think that's more of a deviation right there, which, yeah, I think I'm just going to leave it here. But this is going to get you out early. So you're probably going to need to see some kind of confirmation candle, like a engulfing or a shooting star or, something like that. But here on the 30-minute, it looks like we've peaked on the money flow. I think it's just running out of steam. I mean, if you put a line here like that, it's probably what it's going to do. And you can, if you want, by the way, if you have a money flow type thing that you're watching, I mean, look at the 15 minutes really coming down. Once your money flow crosses to red on a low time frame, sometimes that means it's coming down if it's had a pretty good pump. But always keep an eye on your higher time frames just to see what they're doing. You can't just take it. You can't just say the 15 minutes coming down, so it's done. But yeah, this looks like a topping pattern to me. So anyway, temporarily, by the way, I mean, it'll go back up one day. Here we've got Astra is making another push. And I think it might push through this time. If it doesn't, it'll have a shallow pullback and then it'll push through, in my opinion. See what we see here. I think what we could do on something like this, well, let's go to 4. Here's your range. You know, your range is on this line for your resistance. Here's your support. Play the range until it breaks if you want. Pushing back above resistance 1, which we talked about before. What you could start doing here, you've already got a point where you can start looking at a trend line. But we need a candle to close, a 4-hour candle to close above R1 here to feel good about it. No candles have closed above it yet. And I'm talking about a full candle would be preferable. But I would say this is really starting to show strength if you get a candle like this one to close above the ones that had previously closed. So there's that. Okay, let me move a little bit quicker here. SXP, I still see this happening. It's just going to maybe roll over one more time and go. Looks good to me. No problems there. Mina's been working on this long extended consolidation. Once it breaks out of this trend line, it's ready. On the daily, it looks like it's pushing up on VWAP, but lower time frames, momentum's coming down. So it needs more time, looks like to me. TVK, see what the 4-hour looks like. Looking pretty good. It's closed multiple candles above this line. So I think it'll just, if it's going to retest anymore, it'll just be a small one and hold that line, most likely. Could come down to here, I suppose. And then Doge. Yeah, long way to go. We talked about this one. It's just doing a small retest and it's ready. So that's it. I hope I can have this under an hour. Hit the like button. Comment if there's anything you want to know more on. Comment if there's a coin you want to look at, and I'll chart it for you. And follow me on Twitter again. Bike for sale. Bike for sale right there. Okay, y'all have a good day, and we'll do another one as soon as I can next week.